Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to this episode of Tree Talk. It's episode 226 with myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. We'll have a special guest, Garrett Noonan, joining us from the start as we go through the football at the moment. There's plenty of hurling, camogie, ladies football, and a load of other miscellaneous to get through. So stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Joining us this morning, Matt, is Garrett Noonan from Drom-Broadford and Limerick. Gave so much service to both his club and county over the years. Garrett, how are you keeping this morning?
Good, Jack. How are things?
Good.
How are you, Garrett?
Good, Matt. No fear, no.
Thanks a million for coming on and joining us this morning. A really illustrious career between club and county. We'll start with the county, and you played for Limerick for, I suppose, about 15 or 16 years overall. What was your overriding experience of representing your county?
Sure, it's brilliant, Jack. It's great to get the opportunity to compete at that level, and I suppose to challenge yourself to be the best that you can be. Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think my first year on the panel was 2006, and I was there with Mickey O'Sullivan, John Bruder, Billy Lee, but all brilliant people to be involved with. You learn so much along the way. But yeah, really enjoyable experience. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I suppose at the time it's kind of hard to enjoy it because it kind of consumes you, and you're so kind of, I suppose, caught up in the day-to-day running of everything, and you go from training session to training session, game to game, and it's kind of hard to, I suppose, step back and kind of really fully appreciate what it's all about. It's only when it's over that you kind of look back and you say, yeah, that was brilliant, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah,
and I suppose we'll get into the current situation in a minute, but you can probably relate to where the boys are at the moment after experienced relegation, following, ups and downs that, you played in Division 1 and 2 and obviously played in Division 3 and 4 as well, that it was a roller coaster time, your 15 years in the panel.
Yeah, like I suppose when I started out, we were in Division 1 and we were competing with the likes of Cork and Kerry, Tyrone, Dublin, Donegal, those teams. And then I suppose we experienced the other side of the coin as well, where we played a lot of Division 4 football for a while, and it was about rebuilding then at that stage and trying to get back up out of those divisions, which wasn't easy. And there was, I suppose, during all that time, then there was a transition of players and a turnover of players, which made it all the more difficult. But yeah, like it takes quite a while for the thing to come back around again, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment from people, from everybody to buy into it and to get back to the top level again, and I suppose that's kind of the trajectory the team has been on for the last number of years, is trying to get back to competing at the top level.
And if you were to give some advice from your experience of, climbing up the ladder, what would it be? Is it kind of just patience and trust in what you're doing?
It is, yeah, both of those, but I think it's commitment. Like, I suppose the one thing that has to be there is you have to be committed to it. You have to be committed to every aspect of it. It's not just about turning up for training on a Tuesday or Thursday night. It's everything that goes with it, both off the field, your diet, your nutrition, your sleep patterns, and I suppose everything revolves around that. And that's what I would have found over the years, like that you just get into I suppose, a routine of doing all those things and doing things correctly, because it's part and parcel and what comes with inter-county commitment, and that's what's required, But that would be the one bit of advice I would give. It's, you have to be committed to it.
Yeah, and you've obviously seen a share of the games this year. the results aside, results are pretty negative. Was there anything you saw, improvements in the side or positives that they can take into the Munster Championship?
Yeah, I suppose, look, Division 2 was always going to be a very, very difficult place to be. I suppose with the team going in, they were going to be competing with teams that the top teams in the country. It was always going to be a difficult place to be. Then you had a new management team coming in place. They were trying to find their feet, get to know players, etc. So you had that added difficulty thrown into the mix as well. So it was always going to be a tough task for the lads. But I've seen a couple of the games. I was in Innis last Sunday. The second half was encouraging enough in spells. First half struggled maybe, and I suppose, look, you have to bear in mind as well that it was a game, I suppose, that was a dead rubber as such for both teams, so you have to bear that in mind as well. But look, there's new lads on the panel. They're in there looking to take their opportunity. So look, like, I would see that as an encouragement. It's good to see those new faces, lads eager to play for the county. So it's good to see that. Yeah. So, like, look, fingers crossed for the Munster Championship that they can knuckle down, put in a couple of good weeks' work now, and be ready for the Munster semi-final when it comes around at the end of April.
Yeah, they're going to be playing either Clare or Cork, a team that will be coming off the back of a win. And for Limerick now, it's probably trying to build up some momentum, maybe in challenge games and in training. But how difficult is it to gather that momentum? Because we saw for the last 3 or 4 years, they just seem to be on a high and going up and up and up. So when you're faced with, that downward, like, how do you regroup?
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult now coming off of the back of a league campaign like what they've had. They kind of, I suppose, look, they may take a couple of days off this week to kind of regroup, gather their thoughts, and get back to training again, maybe this weekend or next week, whenever the case is. But I suppose, look, the first thing they have to do is just make sure that they're a united group, that they're going to put the head down, work hard together, stick together, and see where that takes them. That's all they can do, really. They have to take the learnings, I suppose, out of the last couple of weeks. There's been some very, very harsh learnings in it for them. But look, it's all about, I suppose, building their character. It's going to add to that. So I suppose in terms of that, yeah, that's really all they can do is just knuckle down, stick together, work hard for the next couple of weeks, concentrate on themselves, and be ready for the 22nd or 23rd of April, whenever it is.
And this group has shown, and you were part of it in 2019 with that win over Tipperary, that they can just pull it out of nowhere, and that'll be the hope, because they won't be given much of a chance against either Clare or Cork. But they have shown, this same group, that they can come from nowhere and put out a result like they did in Thurles in 19. Yeah,
look, and there's always the chance, there's always the opportunity, provided the team are together and they're working hard. And that's all that really matters is the lads that are inside the four walls of the dressing room and the management team with them. That if they're committed to it, then anything is possible.
Yeah, and I must ask you about Billy, because obviously you said you had a share of managers. Billy was the man you finished up with, and I suppose his role in helping Limerick to get from Division 4 up to Division 2, how important was Billy to the overall thing?
Yeah, like he was a magnificent manager for Limerick for the last number of years. He was not just a manager to the team, like he was almost like a father figure to lads. He knew when, I suppose, to put the arm around the shoulder of a lad, or when to tell a lad that he needs to drive on and work harder. A very good judge of character. But it was absolutely brilliant for the team. Had a great management team around him, built a great management team around him. I suppose it didn't just happen overnight. There was a lot of work put into it. He built that management team around him. He built the group of players around him. But I suppose the one thing I would say about him then as well is he always had Limerick football at heart. It was never about Billy Lee. It was never about any individual. It was all about building a team that was going to be able to sustain the competitions, and I suppose get the most out of lads. So that's kind of, he was brilliant at that. And I suppose he knew Limerick football. He knew the players. So he was absolutely brilliant man to be involved with.
Yeah, and you mentioned about people giving back. I suppose there's a group of players around the same time as you, maybe a bit before, the likes of Par Annan and Andy Lane, Stephen Lavin, these lads that, have Limerick football at heart and they're giving back. And you are starting to see the rewards at underage levels and slowly coming through.
Yeah, it's not easy. I know all those lads are involved in the academy. They're putting in magnificent work there. But that takes a while. And then I suppose you have to be able to transition that from the academy into adult level football. So that's probably also a challenge at the moment, that once the lads come through the academy, that they can then transition from that into adult level football. And that the resources and the supports are there for those lads to get them through and to be able to be ready to be able to compete at the highest level.
That transition there, I just Googled her name the other day just to see was there anything I missed, and I saw a story from Garrett 𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘰𝘠 about being in the gym, and it was one of his first times with you, and he said that you were benching, I think it was 25 reps for 3/4 your body weight, and he said that he was nowhere near it, and it was just an eye-opening that how difficult is it to go from under 20s as it is now into a senior setup?
Yeah, like it's very, very difficult. Like you're going into a senior setup, you're coming up against lads that have maybe 4, 5, 6 years of inter-county experience under their belt, and 4, 5, 6 years of S&C conditioning under their belt. So they're going to be an awful lot further down the track in comparison to an under 20 lad coming into the squad for his first time. And that's not easy. Like you don't get into that. You don't get into that team straight away unless you're exceptional, obviously. But like by and large, those lads have to they bide their time, put in the work, put in the S&C work, and be physically ready then to be able to compete at senior level.
And would you open 𝘰𝘬𝘰𝘪𝘰𝘬𝘬, seeing as what he's done since then?
No, I think the roles have been reversed now somehow.
And just talking about Garrett, and there's obviously the likes of William O'Donoghue that have represented Limerick underage. Is there a small what if, that if those lads had stuck with the big ball, and obviously it's very difficult for, a senior hurling and senior football team to go as it is, and Limerick are on the crest of wave in hurling, but is there a small tinge of, I wonder if them lads had stayed with the football?
Yeah, sure. Look, like you can't but think that. Like, I think back to the Munster final last year in Killarney, and you'd be thinking, what if we had Garrett? What if we had a couple more with him? Would it have made a difference? And I suppose it's on occasions like that you'd always think that if you had one or two more, if you had one or two extra, would it make the difference on the day? But yeah, of course you do. Of course you'd love to have the best players available to you going out on any given day. But that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, Matt, I'll throw it over to you there because I'm keen to hear about your take on Drom in the early noughties and their dominance.
Yeah, I suppose, Garrett, we all know what has happened since the breakthrough, but I'd go back a little bit further because I suppose it's widely accepted that there's a fantastic tradition of hurling in Drom-Broadford, and like the success of the football team and in recent years has been a departure from what was the tradition in the club. It all changed in 1992 with a Junior B football championship county title. But I suppose in those early days, Garrett, there were a couple of people that were central to it. Dr. Sheehy in particular, as well as the now late, unfortunately, Liam Kearns.
Yeah, I suppose Dr. Sheehy at the time had the ambition, the drive, and the foresight to be able to see that there was potential within the club. He gathered some great people around him. Maurice McCarthy, I suppose, included into that group. And they put a team together. They started working with the group, and it all took off from there. It kind of spiraled from there, really. But those were kind of the key men in the whole thing. They started it off. They put in the organisation, they put in the work, and it kind of took off from there, Matt.
Yeah, and then in the late 90s, of course, it really gathered momentum. There was a junior championship in 98, an intermediate championship 12 months later, and then 2 years after that in 2001, which you were part of, the big one.
Yeah, I suppose there was an exceptional group of players there. Just happened to come together at the right time, but not alone were the players there. I suppose the structures were there to help and support them as well. and they took I suppose they took it to a different level at the time, and they got the reward for it.
And I suppose there are many standout performances. If you win 7 county titles in such a short space of time, in less than 15 years, there has to be many landmarks. But 2008 would have to stand out when you became the first club side from the county and the only club side from the county to date to win the Munster Championship. And not only that, but did it the hard way, beat 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘢𝘵𝘯𝘴 Rangers, who are the specialists in it, in the first round.
Yeah, I suppose you got to remember, Matt, that the previous year we were beaten quite comprehensively by Ballylanders in the county final. So the following year, I suppose there was a big focus, a big drive to try and I suppose come back and give a better account of ourselves in the county championship, and that was kind of our primary goal, you know, in 2008, was to get back to a county final, and to get back and try and win that, you know. But I suppose we achieved that, thankfully. And we went on from there, and we happened to draw 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘁 Rangers in the Munster semi-finals. So yeah, I remember in the lead up to the 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘁 Rangers game, obviously we weren't looking beyond it or anything like that, but yeah, there was a serious belief within the squad at the time that we could actually go and do it.
Yeah, and then Kilmurray from Clare, who would be very, very experienced in the Munster Championship in the final. Like, you ground out 2 excellent results, albeit low-scoring results, but 2 albeit, you know, but and then of course in the All-Ireland semi-final you faced the informed team of the competition at that time, which was Crossmaglen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did it the hard way for sure. There was after we had come across Kilmurray Bricken in the 2003 Munster Club Championship as well, I think, and we had probably a more high-scoring game against them that day. They beat us by 3 or 4 points, I think, in the finish. But it was a much higher scoring game. But look, I suppose we tried to adapt the game plan that was going to suit us, that was going to give us the best chance of success. Albeit it wasn't too pretty to watch. But look, we're not too worried about that now, or we weren't back then either. It was all about getting the result and getting over the line. Didn't work out too well for us against Crossmaglen. But look, But it was brilliant to get the opportunity to play against them. I suppose they were one of the best club sides of all time, still are. But it was great to get the opportunity to experience playing against those at that time.
Yeah, Garrett, how much did relegation from senior ranks hurt? Was it 2021? Sorry, 2020.
Yeah, 2020 we lost the relegation final to Galtee Gaels in Kilmallock. Yeah, that was very, very difficult. It was very difficult, having been senior since 2000, hadn't played in numerous semi-finals and finals, to actually go down and get relegated that day. That was very, very tough to take. And I suppose it's only, and I was only thinking the other day, like it's something I wouldn't say you take for granted, but like you don't, I suppose, fully appreciate what it takes to compete at the highest level, be it inter-county or club, until it's actually taken away from you. And it's a long road back. It's a tough road back. There's a lot of work required to get back to where you were. I'm just looking at our own club situation at the moment and trying to get back to competing at senior championship level. That a lot of work has to go in to try and get back up to that again, you know. But I suppose when you're there, you need to fully appreciate what it is and what it takes to get there.
It came very close to it in 2022, Garrett, to getting back.
Yeah, I suppose, and it's a regret that we didn't take our opportunity. It was definitely a game that we could have won, didn't win it. It was a tough year for the club, having lost the football final and in the hurling final a couple of days later. So yeah, look, that's been a tough one to take. But look, hopefully it can kind of galvanise lads and stand to them for the year ahead.
How difficult is it, and as somebody that's one of the leading dual players, how difficult is it to juggle between commitments to hurling and football? We know how difficult it is at inter-county level, but it's equally difficult at club level.
Yeah, it is, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many consecutive weekends we've had last year. But look, I say the one thing I would say about it was it was thoroughly enjoyable. Like players want to be playing games, games every weekend, and it was really enjoyable. Albeit we didn't get the reward at the end. But both management teams, hurling and football, have been brilliant. They've worked very well together. And they have kind of kept the players' welfare in mind at all times, you know. So. And like the lads that have been involved with us in both hurling and football at the club, they're our own club lads. They know, I suppose, what they can look for from lads, and what they expect of lads, you know. So they've managed that situation very well, and huge credit has to go to them for the way that they've organised the last number of weeks and months in the lead up to this championship, but also last year, that the way that they managed the players, you know. And it was like, I suppose it's a testament to them as well that we had more or less 12 or 13 of the same players togging out in both finals, and albeit bar a couple of niggly injuries, everybody was available for every game.
Yeah. Last question from me, Garrett, and it's on a totally different subject. 2023 has been a very special and memorable year for your school, 𝘕𝘕 na Trócaire.
Yeah, fantastic. I suppose we're still enjoying the victory from the 16th of March. The lads were absolutely brilliant. I'm delighted for them. I'm delighted for the players, their families, their clubs, for the work that they've put in. But look, I suppose these things, not to overstate it, but that particular group of players last year struggled massively in championships. I don't think they won a game, Matt, to be honest. But this year, then they turned it around and they worked really hard. There's a couple of great leaders within the squad, pulled it together, and they got their reward.
That's it for me, Jack.
Yeah, I want to echo the congratulations to 𝘕𝘕 na Trócaire and your school and the win. Just quickly before we finish up with you, Garrett, just back to Limerick again. And obviously, if they don't beat Clare or Cork, they're into the Tailteann Cup. And while this group of players, you know, all they know is playing the senior championship, mightn't be the worst thing if, you know, after losing or getting relegated in the league, just to get a bit of momentum, and the Tailteann Cup could provide an opportunity for that.
Yeah, Jack, I suppose, look, if you're talking about developing players and getting lads up to the required level, there's no better way to do it than playing games and playing competitive games. That's the one thing I found through my time involved, is like, you need to be playing matches, you need to be playing games. That's what players want. And I suppose the only way to do that is by getting competitive games. And that's what the next couple of weeks will provide for the lads. Hopefully they can get over Cork or Clare in a Munster semi-final and get back to a Munster final. That's what we all want. But look, after that, then, like, lads want to be playing games. You know, they want to be playing games in a regular interval. You know.
Yeah, and before we finish up, just a couple of quick fire questions. This can be club or county. If someone asks you your most memorable game, what would you point them out to?
I'd say the 2008 Munster Club semi-final against Seymour Rangers.
The semi-final.
Yeah.
Your favourite venues playing?
The Gaelic Grounds.
Club and county?
Yeah, played in Hurlers as well. Hurlers is a nice pitch to play on. But I suppose growing up, you always wanted to play in the Gaelic Grounds. Yeah, I like the Gaelic Grounds.
The best player you played against, and I suppose you've a unique record that you played in the forwards and in the back. So, first of all, was it more difficult playing against people in the backs? You probably, if you made a mistake, it was probably more easily recognised.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I suppose the most difficult player I ever played against. I remember in 2007. Yeah, 2007. I think it was. We played Mayo in Castlebar, and I was playing half forward the same day. I was marking a lad called Peadar Gardner. I think Peadar had 3 points kicked in the first half, and that was the finish of me. I got called ashore at half time, so I'd say, yeah, he was probably the most difficult opponent I've ever come across.
And in the backs, was there any particular forward then later on in your career that you thought, I don't want to be marking him again?
Yeah, like, look, I suppose, and even more so in training, there's like, you come up against top class forwards. Like Danny Neville was always a man that was very, very difficult to tie down. Still is, you know, he's electric. So yeah, a lad like him that was very, very difficult to mark.
And the best player you played with throughout the course of your career? Probably give us one for club and one for county.
At club level, I would have to say Tom McLaughlin. He was just unbelievably consistent. He was always there, brilliant leader, fantastic attitude, just went about his business quietly but very, very effective. I think you could count on one hand the number of games he missed for the club in my time involved. But yeah, he was exceptional.
And for the county then?
For the county, I'd say would be Johnny McCarthy. Johnny was again just an exceptional leader. He was so consistent. He was again just went about his business quietly. But like anytime you went out against the team, Johnny was probably always the lad that was detailed to mark the top forward, and he just went about his business and always produced brilliant displays for Limerick.
Lovely. Garrett, you've been very good with your time, very generous. We really appreciate that. And hopefully Clash na Trócaire continue to prosper in the school in both hurling and football, and maybe Drom will get over the line in the hurling and football this year after going so close. But thank you very much for joining us, Garrett, and I'm sure Matt echoes the same, and best of luck with 2023.
Thank you very much, Garrett, and the best of luck.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Matt.
Talk to you in a while. Thank you.
Talk to you. Take care.
Oh, Matt, that was Garrett Noonan, a former Limerick footballer, current Drom footballer and hurler, as he said, came so close last year with the club. Another brilliant guest.
Jack, you know, absolutely, but you know, the service, he's such a modest man, like, but the service that he has given to both club and county in football and to the club and hurling has been simply phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, Jack. And you know, 7 county senior medals. You know, he's one of that rare breed, that great crew of drum players that came together, and they were a fantastic team, and they raised the standard, they raised the benchmark, they set a new benchmark in Limerick club football, you know, and like, you know, they left you know, a huge reservoir of very happy memories after them. They were an excellent group of players, and Garrett was an integral part of it.
Yeah, they left a lot of good memories for the locals. They left a lot of bad memories for everyone else outside the county. Myself,
well, yeah, everyone within the county that was trying to beat them, Jack.
Yeah, they were a bit like Limerick are now in the hurling, Kilkenny were in the hurling, you know, Dublin football. They were just that a movable object. If you drew Drom, you knew your year was more than likely up. And just I just came across a tweet from Jerome O'Connell. We all know who Jerome is. When Garrett Noonan, I suppose, retired from intercounty football, didn't come out with a statement, wasn't flashy. It just said, Garrett Noonan, not a part of the 2021 Limerick senior football panel. The Drom-Broadford man first joined the panel in 2006 and gave incredible service across the last 15 years. Not one for headlines, but filled many a role during some tough years for Limerick. And I think it kind of summed up Garrett. Wasn't one for headlines. Did the job that was required. Was there for the good days and the bad days. And I know he's given back with the academy, like those players he mentioned. So, you know, his impact on Limerick football will be felt for a long time to come, please God. And it's good to have people like him, you know, rowing in behind Limerick, because at a low ebb at the moment, Matt, I think it's fair to say, but there's time now for Mark Fitz and the team to regroup, and we'll go straight into the footballers.
Yeah, but just on a very general point on that, Jack, like we should enjoy these people, and people should, you know, we should have enjoyed Drom. I certainly enjoyed the whole Drom Odyssey while it was going on, rather than being sort of trying to enjoy it in retrospect, you know. And the same with the Limerick Hurlers. They're an exceptional team, and people should just sit back, and great players, no matter who they play for. You know, yeah. rather than indulging in begrudgery, like we should just enjoy them, like rather than you know, try to flick back the pages in a number of years' time and say, oh, gee, they were great and all this sort of thing. We should enjoy them while they're around, you know.
Yeah, no, we should, but it's hard. It's hard when they're beating your team. But I do get your point. And 7 championships, 18 semi-finals in a row. I don't think we'll see dominance like that in our lifetimes. I don't think. But you do have to give praise to that special Drom-Broadford team and Garrett Noonan, who was an integral part of it. But he was also an integral part of Limerick football, Matt, and they concluded their league campaign with a comprehensive loss to Clare. Now, Clare did kick on at the very end. It finished 2-18 to 9 points in Cusack Park. I think it's fair. It's important to say it was a dead rubber. Both teams were relegated going into the game. There was nothing they could take from it. The only thing is it probably eats into Limerick's confidence a small bit. Another demoralising loss after, positive result against Meath, decent performance against Kildare, where, they left a lot behind them, whereas there probably isn't much to take from the Ennis game. But look, they have the bones of 6 weeks or more. Sorry, they've probably about 7 or 8 weeks to prepare now for Cork or Clare. The only thing is, whoever they play in the Munster Championship semi-final, they will have lost to in the league. And I think that's just one negative to take from it.
It is, and it's sort of not just losing to them, but lost. They were their two most comprehensive defeats. Cork and Clare decide that they're going to meet one or other of whom they're going to meet in the Munster semi-final. But I just wonder, and fear like what will be the ultimate impact of the whole experience in Division 2, which was of course pockmarked with those two very, very, very heavy defeats going forward. Mark Fitzgerald obviously has a huge job of work to do, I think, in picking him up, because there were a few bright spots during the year. Let's not get away from that. And you've touched on them. The draw against Meath, decent performance against Kildare, a very, very decent performance against Louth. Very, very decent second half against Dublin. But ultimately, you're after being relegated of a 7-game group with just a single point. And I'd be worried about, albeit it was a dead rubber and all that, but I would have expected that Limerick would have done better, especially seeing that there is a possibility, unlikely though as it may seem, although Clare may think otherwise, that they may meet in the Munster semi-final.
Yeah, no, they will play either Clare or Cork. It'll be no one else. It'll be no stranger for Limerick. But they'll have to regroup now. And they've done it before. And I mentioned it to Garrett. There is that game from 4 years ago against Tip, where Tip were flying at the time. They reached an All-Ireland semi-final just a couple of years beforehand, and they'd win Munster the following year as well, I think, which gets kind of lost in the kind of COVID years. But Limerick produced a performance out of nowhere against Tip 4 years ago, and they'll probably have to replicate something like that. But we might have to touch on it later on the line, Matt. But right now, Tailteann Cup, if you were offered it as a Limerick footballer, I think you'd take that and be confident that you would be one of the favourites.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. And as you put it to Garrett Noonan there, it may not be the worst thing that would happen, Limerick. Because let's face it, Jack, based on the results and based on the Division 2 campaign, the Tailteann Cup is staring Limerick in the face, And I think it'll be a glorious opportunity to regroup, and exercise, if you like, the ghosts of the Division 2 campaign, and a chance to regroup and build in anticipation of the league in 2024.
Yeah, I think it could be a brilliant opportunity. Obviously, you want Limerick to go against Clare or Cork and give performance and hopefully reach a Munster final. But we saw last year that the gulf was there with Kerry. We saw this year that there is a gulf with those higher end teams in Division 2. So it wouldn't be the worst. I don't think it'd be the worst thing. But we won't be writing off Mark Fitz and his team as of yet. Look, they've given us some brilliant days out over the last 5 or 6 years. So let them go back, regroup, get a hard training block in, and hopefully they can gather themselves then for the Munster Championship, which is in May. May is when their fixture is down for, I think, off the top of my head. But
But what you want to get is consistency between games, game on game, consistency within games, because we have seen very poor spells, and then we've seen outstanding spells in games.
Yeah, and I think that's just Garrett said it. You just playing game on game will help with consistency, and that's what Limerick are hoping for. Just checking the fixture there, it actually isn't that far away, Matt. It's the 22nd of April. Cork and Clare are out the 9th, the same day as the league final. So we won't have to wait too long, but they'll have a nice training block now, and please God they can regroup and put on a performance like we know they can on the 22nd of April. But another team that are, turning their focus now to the championship is obviously the ladies footballers, Matt. They were beaten 3-16 to 111 by Antrim in the league semi-final. Antrim had shown in the group stages that they were a formidable team, junior champions, obviously, last year, and they've really kicked on, and they were totally deserving of the victory. There's no denying that. But Limerick were just a bit slow off the mark, and Antrim had got too far ahead, and there was a bit of a fight back in the second half, but a third goal killed off any Limerick hope, really.
Yeah, I suppose that sums it up, really, Jack. First of all, physically, Antrim were a very, very big, strong side physically. And they were going to win the physicality stakes all day. Now, there was a very, very difficult breeze, and unfortunately, Limerick had to face it in the first half. Although Limerick got off to a brilliant start with 2 points inside the first 2 minutes from Leisha Brown, from freeze, and you saying to yourself, gee, this looks good, but suddenly Antrim, and in particular Orla Printer, the full forward, who ended up with 1-9 or 1-10, she caused all sorts of problems. But Limerick had a serious issue, Jack, with getting possession from their own kick out, due to the wind, mainly the strength of the wind. And once Antrim got into the groove, maybe after about 7 or 8 minutes, it took them, I think, to get back level. But once they got into the groove, they literally came forward in waves, and it was a very, very strong, physically very, very strong Antrim team, and Limerick found it very hard to cope with their physicality as well. But credit Limerick in the third quarter. They went in at half-time, I think, was it 13 points down? And at one stage in the second half, they had reduced it to 7 when Cathy Mee got the goal. And, but unfortunately, at that stage, they had restricted Antrim to a single point in the second half, in the first almost 20 minutes of the second half. But then Antrim drove on again. Orla Printer got a couple of points, and they were back in the groove. And Mary O'Neill set up a goal for Grania McLaughlin, as you flagged there, and that was it, game, set, and match. But for a Division 4 side, I would say, Jack, having been looking at Division 4 over the last number of years, Antrim are a very, very, very good side.
And I think in Orla Printer, they definitely have one of the best players in the country. She is a phenomenal talent.
Jack, no, that's not an exaggeration in the slightest. You're absolutely correct there. Absolutely correct. The fact that she might be playing her trade in Division 4 and in the Intermediate Championship, that girl would get her place on any county team. She's an exceptional footballer. Absolutely 100%. Exceptional footballer, But look, they've got to regroup now and face into the championship, where they're drawn with Down, Sligo, and Kilkenny. And just hope for the best. But I don't know how the system can be changed, Jack. But we've played 3 intermediate teams this year in the league. 3 of our 5 matches were against intermediate teams: Wicklow, Leitrim, and now Antrim. You're sort of playing teams above your grade, and I'm not putting that forward as an excuse for Limerick, but despite the fact that they lost, and I have no doubt if circumstances were different and the wind didn't play such a part in it, Jack, that we would have had a much closer game. But we did fear here last week. We had the utmost respect for Antrim and what they were likely to bring to the table. But Graham Shine will just have to go away like the Limerick senior footballers, regroup, and like there'll be novel games against Sligo going down, because I don't remember us playing him for a number of years. So that will be very interesting in itself, and a good championship run. Now I wouldn't. I'm not led, not inclined in the least to write off Limerick's championship chances at this remove because of the defeat to Antrim. As I said, the whole league campaign and the whole league performance has to be qualified when you factor in that they played 3 intermediate teams.
Yeah, 100%. But that should put them in good stead going into the junior championship, where alongside Fermanagh, you're probably expecting them to be favourites. But like the men's footballers, Graham Shine and his side can now just look ahead to the championship and get a good training block in and see where they go from there. And I suppose over the last few weeks, Matt, the ladies footballers have been flying, and their female counterparts in the camogie have struggled, greatly in Division 2, but finally got that win at the weekend, Matt, against Offaly. First win since 2021 in the league, and last year Offaly relegated them. The restructuring meant that Offaly came down with them into 1B or Division 2, whatever you want to call it. But Limerick halted that slide, I think, is the main thing. They won by 3 points against Offaly in Neville Park. You were there. It was kind of a win. It's just a momentum swinging win is what it was.
It was, and of course I was extremely happy with the win, and I was extremely pleased with what I saw and the performance. And before we go any further, Jack, John Lillis was missing, and his wife Niamh, who is part of the backroom team, was of course also missing because Niamh had suffered the loss of her father on the day before. So we send our deepest sympathy to John and Niamh Lillis and the Lillis family. But certainly in his absence, his girls did him proud, actually. And looking at the game, you would struggle, Jack, to accept that Limerick hadn't won a league game since 2021. This was a very, very good performance, Jack, and it was a performance where Offaly really put it up to him, but Limerick refused to die, and Limerick carved up. They had some very, 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 very good and promising performance. Overall, it was a very promising team performance, Jack. And Sophie O'Callaghan was moved up to centre forward. She was centre back last year. She was centre back for a day. She's just coming back from injury, and she was in the forwards. And she created both goals. One for 𝘬𝘴𝘰𝘪𝘢𝘵𝘪𝘰𝘯𝘴, who I thought was absolutely outstanding, and the other for Clare Keating, who ended up with 1-9. But the story of Clare Keating, Jack, is simply phenomenal. This is the girl that was minding the Limerick goal last year, and now she has transitioned after the return of Laura O'Neill. She only came back because Laura O'Neill was injured, but what an impact she has made. And she ended up last Saturday with 1-9, which was a fantastic return. 𝘬𝘴𝘰𝘪𝘀 Costello, after injury, getting back up to her best. You Marion Quaid leading from the back. Very, very impressed with the performances of Teresa Dore, and Ailby Larkin at centre back, Jack. Has a future in that position, I believe, from what I saw. It was a day, and of course it was very tense there, for the reason, just to give a background to the listeners, coming into the game, it was win or bust for Limerick. A draw was no good because Offaly had picked up a draw previously in the campaign with Antrim. So, and of course, there was the little matter that Offaly sent us down last year. And Mairead Tehan, who got 3 goals the Moneygall girl, former Tipperary player, who scored 3 goals in sending us down last year. You know, I think she got 10 points on Saturday. She was the free taker. But look, Limerick withstood it all, Jack, and dug out a hugely important win. And it's terribly important that Limerick would be playing in Division 1, Jack, because we flagged it in this cast a couple of times. You know, failure to preserve Division 1 status means you're dropping out of the top 12. You know, which is serious, in my view.
Oh yeah, it's a huge result for Limerick Camogie, and it completely changes their outlook heading into the championship, because you're going from, you know, potentially two successful relegations to, you know, avenging a result from last year. And when you briefly looking at that championship draw, Matt, you know, Antrim, Offaly and Waterford, obviously you've Offaly again who you've beaten. You know, you gave Antrim enough of it, you know, in their game, and Waterford are the standout team, I think it's fair to say. But you know, you don't have Kilkenny, you don't have Galway, you don't have Cork, you don't have Tipperary. You know, they're winnable games, you know, and it could really change the season for Limerick Camogie.
Yeah, we're suddenly in the mix, Jack, of getting out of our group for a second year in a row and getting into a quarter final of the senior championship.
Yeah, like
that's what it has done, you know.
It changes the mindset in training, that you can look forward now, and you can, you know, when you're training with confidence, it can make such a difference. And that'll be the hope for Johnny's side. And please God, John can get back to the field, and I echo your sympathies extended to the families there. But when he gets back on the field, you know, you can start looking positively. When I look at the fixtures there, you have Antrim first, you know, and if you get off to a good start against Antrim, you Waterford next, it's kind of a free hit, and then you've Offaly, and you're in a really good position, Matt, as you said, to get out into the quarterfinals for the second year running. And I suppose 2 or 3 weeks ago, you would never have thought something like that was possible. But that's the way things go, and how quickly momentum can shift, you know. So it's looking up for Camogie.
Put the whole thing into context. It's been an excellent weekend for Limerick Camogie. We had the senior team getting a first win and ensuring Division 1 status. We had the junior team getting a first win, and they're going to be considerably strengthened shortly by the inclusion of 4 or 5 of the minors when the minor championship is over. We had the minors getting a very good win in Gibbstown up in Navan against Meath, and they now have 2 wins and a draw out of 3 games and are poised for the knockout stage of the championship. They play Antrim in Abbottstown this Sunday at 2:00, where I think there's semi-finals in it actually, Jack. 4 out of 6 go through. I'm not sure. I'm subject maybe to correction on that, but one way or another, you know, they're into the business, into the competition almost, and they certainly will be in it if they beat Antrim at the weekend. Didn't put Antrim after coming off of 2 very good wins, and to cap it all, Jack, the under-16As qualified for the Munster final. They went to Anacarty and beat Tipperary 13 points to 1-9, and will now play Cork in the Munster final on the Easter Monday. So it's a complete transformation of the Camogie landscape over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, complete transformation, but a good one at that. And you know, it was long overdue that you know, bright spell for Limerick Camogie came, but it's here, and long way continue as we approach the championship months. You can kind of see the sun is coming in here, the weather is changing, we've brighter evenings, so it's looking well for Limerick Camogie. Another team it's certainly looking well for, Matt, is the Limerick senior hurlers, who are flying it. I mean, we were both in the Gaelic grounds on Saturday evening, and first of all, it was a joy to see, you know, Tip to an extent. I wouldn't be a massive Tip fan, I won't lie, to see them, you know, go at Limerick and try their hand and give as good as they got for 35 minutes. But talking from our view up in the stand, I don't think there was much fear, Matt, for the second. I think that's fair to say. And within 10 minutes, we knew exactly why, because when this Limerick team gets going, there is nobody that can live with them.
You know, Jack, at this stage, we're nearly out of adjectives. But we'll stick with the tried. We'll stick with the tried and trusted. Awesome. I thought that the second half was just simply awesome, Jack. Some of the creation of some of the scores, Jack, they were simply magnificent. And you're right. The Tipperary were a joy to watch in the first half, but they got loads of space, and they were able to build from the back. And fair play to Barry Hogan. He has taken a leaf out of Nicky Quaid's book with a very, very good puck out. But it's still a bit to go, because considering if you remember one particular incident that I'll single out, Nicky pucks the ball out to his right, Tom Morrissey catches it and over the bar. Straight into Tom's hand, So,
straight into Tom's hand on the move. He didn't even break stride. He just he's like a quarterback, is Nicky Quaid. He puts it into where you're going to be, He doesn't put it where you are. It's where you're going to be. And fair play to Tom for catching the ball on the run and firing it over. But the suite of skills that these Limerick players have, like Keane Lynch's score, I don't know if he's first or second, but 6 players involved, the length of the field doesn't touch the ball, doesn't touch the ground once. I mean, the one where Colin Coughlin gets it, gives another pass, and is on to, and then after Keane. I don't know, Matt. I don't know what you say about him anymore.
It's just unbelievable stuff, Jack. But a joy to watch, and that's the point I'm making. Limerick supporters will enjoy it, but hurling fans everywhere should enjoy this kind of thing. This type of stuff, or this kind of a team, only comes once in a generation. But look, well, I'm just stuck for words, Jack, for the second half now. Full credit to Tipperary in the first half, but you're right there when you say like that. At no stage was there worry that Limerick were going to lose, even though when they were 5-6 points behind, because you could see very clearly the things that weren't going right for Limerick, and you feel very confident that once John Kiley and Paul Kennett got the lads in at half time, that would all be rectified, and by God, sure it was. The space that Tipperary were getting was suddenly closed down in the 25 minutes after half time, and it mirrors in many ways the Munster final of 2021 when when Limerick made that dramatic comeback, from a greater deficit that day, but they outscored Tipperary 112 to 4 points in the 25 minutes after half time, Jack, and you'd have to say on the home straight in the last 10 minutes that Limerick probably stepped off the pedal a small bit.
Yeah, it's probably the only semblance of a downside to Limerick in the championship this year, that they've come off the pedal against Cork, against Clare, and against Galway below in Salt Hill, and now Tipperary. That if there is something you can catch Limerick on, maybe at the very start and the very end of the game, but what they do in the middle is incredible. And what I find with Limerick is they kind of seem annoyed when you take a game to them, like they did in 2021. They were like, "Grand, you're after upsetting us now. We're just going to turn it on." And just the players they can call upon. And Matt, was there 5 or 6 All-Stars? There was 5 All-Stars on the bench. I think Darren Donovan then, who was a late withdrawal, makes it 6.
Six All-Stars were not didn't start. Let's put it that way. But you're worrying there about the slow finish. I wouldn't be terribly worried about that now a while, Jack, because to me that's money in the bank. Because that is something that Limerick are going to rectify.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it will. And they have a league final to look forward to now against Kilkenny on the 9th of April, Easter Sunday in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at 2:00. Stadium fitting for a game like Limerick Kilkenny, and probably needs more for Kilkenny, but we'll get into that game next week. We'll do an in-depth preview because obviously they have a rest week.
I see an awful lot of the narrative in the last since it was announced about Páirc Uí Chaoimh, people giving out that it was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and it was should be in Thurles, and some even suggesting that it's in Croke Park. Jack, we should get on with it.
Yeah, I think the main thing was maybe parking in the park is difficult, but
that's the issue. But But Park O'Keefe, is the finest stadium in the country outside of Croke Park. It's right up there with Croke Park.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know,
And look, it's Easter Sunday.
I know
It's a day
I
out.
know there's a parking issue, and I get all that. Like, but I prefer all day to be going to our second city rather than our first city.
Yeah, I think Croke
Except
Park,
for
or Park O'Keefe.
except for the All Ireland final, of course.
Yeah, please
I'm
God, we'll have a
talking
few
about
trips.
I'm talking about the logistics of getting there now. When I say that,
Yeah, we'll please God, we'll have a few trips to the capital later on in the year. But before we go away from the hurling, because we will look at it in depth next week, you had from the team that started on Saturday evening now, Matt. Like, who comes back into that team for what? Not Kilkenny now, for Waterford on the 23rd of April. Like, so you had your team that started, then you had Kyle, Garrod, Dara, Shane Flanagan, Dan Morrissey, Rich English on the bench. And obviously there was more. Conor Boylan came on as well, did well. Colin Neal started these boys. Like, who has to come back in the team? And for who? Because it's very difficult.
Don't ask me for who. That's above my pay grade now, Jack.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Hayes has to come back into the team. Garrod Hegarty. Dara. Like, in fairness, Dara O'Donovan has been having a fine season, Jack.
Brilliant.
Nice
Yeah,
and quite
excellent season.
going about his business. Has been absolutely, totally consistent, Jack, I'll answer you by saying we leave it to John Kiley.
Yeah, we'll trust in John Kiley. I think it'll be the team that started against Cork in 2021 with a straight battle between Mike Casey and Dan Morrissey for that full-back slot. Obviously, Mike was injured at the time, so that would mean Peter and Keane coming into the team that started last year. But John Kiley now will have the luxury of at least 4 Munster Championship games where he can see what the likes of Cathal O'Neill, Colin Coughlin are at. Even you could give Conor Boylan a start. Rich English maybe gets a start. Barry Murphy has done really well in the league in midfield. Adam English and Shane O'Brien, depending on which way the Munster 20 Championship falls, could have their say. I mean, they're both going to be able to play the league final because they're out tonight. And obviously there's it's 7 days. You can't play 20s and senior within the 7-day period is the new rule. It's better. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better. So Limerick, I mean, I don't know. I don't envy John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk and Cunningham and Don Grading, these boys, for having to pick the team, but it's better picking a Limerick team than another team. But if you're happy to move on from the seniors, Matt, the Limerick 20s, pretty much started the day perfectly for Limerick. 118 to 114 in the Frahar Field against Waterford. And I think that result flattered Waterford a bit, Matt. They got a late goal from Patrick Fitzgerald. And again, it was kind of a third quarter push from Limerick, really kind of pulled them away from Waterford. But didn't really seem to get out of third or fourth gear with the players we know they have and what we've seen before. They didn't really light it up, but, got the job done. And I think Diarmaid Mullins will be pleased at what he saw.
Yeah, it's the first round of the championship. It's a tough away game in Frahar Field, and like the minors, Jack, and we'll be talking about the minors in a few minutes. It was all about getting the job done, and they got it done rather comfortably, I would say. In the Patrick Fitzgerald got the goal with practically the last puck of the game. So, like, going down the home straight and going into the concluding stages, they were 7 points up. But we will be able to make a much better judgment of Limerick and where they're at when we see them this evening against Clare in the Gaelic grounds, because Clare have already drawn with Tipperary. So to give us an absolute idea, and I suppose we in the context of the whole championship, we'll get an idea also of where Cork are at when they're playing Waterford this evening. So at least all teams will have shown their hand to a certain degree at this stage. So, but look, what Limerick have to concentrate is what is immediately in front of them, and what immediately is in front of them is this evening when they play Clare in the Gaelic grounds. And a second win, Jack, is going to put them in a very, very strong position. There's no question about it.
They would, but Clare look to have a strong team. They've Patrick Crotty, Adam Hogan, Keith Smith, Oran Cahill, John Kennelly, and Oisin O'Donnell have all played senior in the league for Brian Lohan this year. That's to go with Niall O'Farrell and David Kennedy that we saw with Ard Sculreich that are really good forwards, you know. So Limerick will be up against it. Diarmuid Mullins has named his side. There's just one change to team. Joseph Fitzgerald comes in for Barry Duff in midfield. Obviously, Joe was part of the Munleen team that won All Ireland, but you know there was a good spread of scorers, Matt, in Waterford for Limerick, because we know how good certain players are. Joe, Shane O'Brien, Adam English got a point each. They've played with the seniors. Paddy Donovan got a point from play, but you know Con Hayes got 1-2, probably a lesser known figure from Newcastle. Adam Fitzgerald got a pair of points from full forward. Fintan Fitzgerald, who was in his first year out of minor, got a point as well. So the scores coming from everywhere, like the senior. They're just like a more youthful version of the seniors, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was borne out watching the game last night. The minors, you know, are very much trying to emulate the seniors as well in their approach to the game. So, like they were involved in a massive game last night, massive game against a very, very good Clare team, and like you had the subplot of the whole Ard Sculreich contingent on the Clare side and the Ard Sculreich contingent on the Limerick side. So it all added up, and like Jack, it was as good a minor game as I've seen last night, and it's great testimony to Evan Loftus and his men that they came out of it, because it was a real Munster Championship game, a real test for Limerick. And gives you a real sense of what they're about, where they're at. And you'd have to say, at this remove, Jack, that Limerick minors are in a good place.
Oh, definitely in a good place, and they're a fine team to watch, Matt. Obviously, last week's game was ruined with the weather blowing Waterford. That was just a war of attrition. They got the job done, but last night, as you said, you could see exactly what Evan Loftus' side game plan was. It was nice, quick, snappy ball into the forwards when all possible. Yeah. Sean Duff and Robert O'Farrell with the goals. Darren Colopy was immaculate over freeze. Hugh Flanagan got 5 alone, the first class. Very, very reminiscent of Tom Morrissey, I find. Just kind of shoot on side player, very accurate. But they're in a really good place now, Matt. Going into they have a nice long break now. I think 3 weeks before.
Before they go to Hurlers to play Tipperary, and Tipperary have already lost to Clare, and in the interim, Clare Tipperary will have played Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and that will, you know, you must remember Clare Tipper All Ireland champions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like
last night last night was a potential banana skin though, because there was a good few of those lads that we've seen again with Ard Sculreich. You know, we mentioned them. Michael Collins was brilliant for Ard Sculreich this year, and Mark O'Brien full forward. Now he got a lot of points, but most of them frees. But they kept Michael Collins relatively quiet, and as you said, they had beaten the All Ireland champions in the first round. So it does go to show where Limerick are. But I think for the 20s and minors, Cork are probably the team to watch out for, and we haven't seen them yet. We'll see them tonight, obviously. And
we saw him in the minor last night, or we didn't see him, but we saw what they were up to in the minor last night, you know.
Yeah, and we'll see them in the 20s tonight.
They comprehensively beat Waterford, but I wouldn't compare Waterford's performance against Cork with Waterford's performance against Limerick. First of all, Waterford were away at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Secondly, against Limerick, they were at home in the Fraher Field. The conditions were such that night, Jack, that it was a great leveller. It was an evening that was cockshot for an upset. You know, Waterford could have stole the game. You know, they literally could. You know, even though Limerick had shot 13 wides to their 4, you know, which is probably a better barometer of the disparity between the sides rather than the final scoreline of 1-6 to 6 points. So
it was.
I wouldn't be running to judgment on that, but you know, I suppose what's definitely decided after last night is that Limerick are in a very, very strong position to reach at least the semi-final, and that Waterford really have an uphill struggle to stay in the competition.
Yeah, and moving back to the 20s, Matt. Do you think Limerick will go 2 from 2 and join them and cap off a pretty perfect week for Limerick hurling and camogie?
I do, Jack.
Yeah.
I do. But Clare are always tough customers. And I wouldn't underestimate him for a minute for the simple reason that some of them have been filtered in, maybe only for little cameo appearances with Brian Lohan's team. I suppose the two main ones would be Adam Hogan and Patrick Trotty. After that, the others only got, but it'll tell you that they're in the thoughts of the senior management in Clare, which means that they're good players.
Yeah, but Darren Mullins
and
has
you'll have the little matter of David Kennedy and Niall O'Farrell and facing their former Old School teammates in Keane Scully and Shane O'Brien. So
Evan O'Leary as well in the corner would probably pick up.
Evan O'Leary, and
probably pick up one of them. So he'll know exactly what they're about. But I agree with you, Matt. I think Limerick will complete a pretty perfect weekend for hurling and camogie in the county. That game is on at 7:00 this evening in the Two-Scale grounds. When I say this evening, I mean Wednesday, March 29th. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, just go away and check the score because the game will have been played at that stage. Finish off, Matt, just a couple of small notices. The Limerick GA annual, and I know you wanted to touch on this.
This is the work of your fellow clubman, Paul Anglum, who produced 12 months ago, who produced an excellent history of Ballysteen, an excellent production. This is equally as good a production. This is an absolutely fantastic production, Jack. For Limerick supporters, it's a treasure trove because it goes through the 3 in a row. There's a bit from every club. There are the Roll of Honour. There is Artskull, Riche's Breakthrough. You name it, Jack. It is inside in between these covers. For all 400 pages, 420 pages. Fantastic. First of all, congratulations to Paul Anglum on an absolutely fantastic job. It was so painstaking, the detail that he has gone into. And it's punctuated with some fantastic photography and some nostalgia, some nostalgic photographs, etc. It deals with a whole myriad. I don't think there's a thing that's in Limerick GA that's not covered inside those between those two covers. And for 20 quid, there's in all bookshops and shops in all around the county. It's extremely good value, Jack.
There's your sales pitch now. Well done to Paul, first and foremost. And I haven't got my hands in it yet now, but I'm sure I'll read it cover to cover. You can't read enough about Limerick GA at the moment. While you're in a selling mood, Matt, do you want to sell a few lawnmowers for us? Our Ballysteen win a lawnmower raffle is still ongoing. I'll just throw the poster there for the time being, just to be a bit greedy with it. It's worth over 3,000 Husqvarna Automower 415X, and there's also other prizes there. If you want to scan those codes, they'll work, or you can go get them off any club member. You can message me if you want, or you can get them on the Ballysteen J website. If you go onto our Twitter and Facebook, there's all the links there. Just a personal plug. The draw will be held later this month. Also, on Saturday evening, we have our social in Davy Mans and Rakiel celebrate the boys winning the 21s championship, and you might see a special horse from Ballysteen there, Matt, from Cheltenham. I don't know, will Davy bring the real whacker to the pub, but please God. But in other moving on from all that, make sure to get your annual. It's in all good bookshops, and I presume it's in the share shops around the county as well, Matt.
It is absolutely. It really is simply fantastic. Fantastic. I haven't read it all, Jack. I have read a lot of it, but it's absolute. It's one of those ones that you dig into, and you just don't want to get out of.
That's well. If you start with the 400 pages, you might flick through all of them. And before we finish, another good news, I suppose, for Limerick GA, we got a message in from a man, Pat O'Flaherty, from Ballygran, who is living in Cavan. He's the manager of the Cavan under-20s, and they won their first ever league title last week. So the reach of Limerick hurling has stretched up to the north, and Cavan won a first league title. And it's brilliant to see Limerick men all over the county and the input they have, and to spread the games far and wide. And Cavan are far from a strong hurling stronghold, but they won a league title, and a Limerick man to the front of it, Pat O'Flaherty from Ballygrand.
Yeah, well, certainly Cavan isn't the bastion of hurling by any manner or means, but it's absolutely fantastic, like to see Limerick men and women wherever they go. First of all, getting involved like Pat O'Flaherty has got involved in Cavan, and then to become manager of the take on the being manager of the Cavan under-20 hurling team, and to win a first ever league. It's congratulations to Pat. Well done. It's fantastic to see people bringing the message of Limerick hurling to the northern part of our country, or to parts of our country where hurling is certainly, struggling to get off the ground. And Cavan would be one of the weaker counties, and I suppose they wouldn't mind me saying that in hurling. And it's great that Pat is sowing the seeds of hurling in his adopted county, and we say to Pat, well done.
Yeah, well done to Pat. I think that's fair to say. I don't think there's anything else, Matt, for us to cover this week as such. It's a quiet weekend. We've no senior action as far as I'm aware. The leagues have come to an end for everyone bar the senior hurlers, who have that league final on the 9th next week. We'll be looking at that. You're cutting in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the league started last weekend, and they didn't get off to a great start, the football league. But weather played hell with fixtures last weekend, and it played hell with 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘭𝘴 as well. Now, congratulations, by the way, to Mungret St. Paul's, who won the A section of it, which went ahead, but only parts of the B and C sections went ahead. So those games will have to be rescheduled and over the coming weeks. But there was a whole raft of football fixtures that were down for the weekend, and they had to be cancelled for weather reasons. But there's a very, very ambitious programme of hurling league fixtures on this weekend, and we would certainly hope that all of them will go ahead.
Yeah, I know it was disrupted locally. Anyways, both weeks, just the weather playing havoc. We played a dare in football on Friday night, and you wouldn't put your dog out in it. But the game would head fair play to dare. The pitch in the dare is immaculate. It took it really well, but I think the conditions were very slippy. So the leagues got underway across the county, and they were weather disrupted. But we'll see more and more club action now with the national leagues coming to an end. It was a decent weekend for Limerick overall. I know the ladies footballers lost and the senior men's footballers lost, but the camogie survived and the senior hurlers got the league final. So we look forward to that next week. Obviously, tonight we have the 20s in action, tonight being Wednesday, as I said previously. And we wish Darren Mullins and his side all the best as they look to make it 2 from 2 in the defence of their title. A shout out to Garrett Noonan, who gave us a lot of time at the start of the podcast. Obviously has seen it all in the Limerick football landscape, both at club and inter-county level. So do check that out if you missed the start of the podcast. To Noah's Menswear has sponsored the podcast. A huge thank you to them for helping us do what we do here. And as always, to Matt O'Callaghan, the main man with the podcast, bringing all the information. And to you at home watching, whether you're watching or listening, make sure to like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, and do all those good things as we try to keep you in the know for Limerick GA. But for me, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan, that's over and out for episode 226 of the Tree Talk podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
The question again, we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, and Seanie Buckley to do that to Tomás O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left?